Hello, I'm Brad.
And I'm Jason.
You are listening to
Dice in Mind.
I know we've talked about this before, but I want to forewarn everybody. We got a great interview tonight, but when we're done with the interview, Jason and we've had time over the past few weeks to process the series finale of Picard. We will be talking in the context of spoilers. So
Yes.
If you don't want to hear the spoilers when you finish listening to the interview, which we really hope you do because it's phenomenal.
Yep.
Don't listen to anymore until you watch the finale.
We're gonna remind you of that when we get there to the GM corner. But you'll see how it fits so well with this episode's conversation.
Well, and it's we've talked about this because we've been playing with, and we'll talk more about this in the future as well. We really are into playing Star Trek Adventures now. And you and I have been doing some writing work within it. In a future episode, I'll talk how I've been using some free AI tools to help, not the writing, but just learning
idea
about
generation.
Yes. But one of the things, there's a couple of games that I have, and I don't have them in front of me, and I can't believe I don't remember the names. But this idea of, and I learned this term from our friends at Green Ronin, the idea of playing in gritty space.
Yeah.
Realistic space.
Right.
Based off of the physics and the technology we have now, just perhaps a little bit pushed forward. And you and I got into real discussions about, life on other planets. How would we handle, alien races? How do we handle, let's be honest, independent of alien races, we know that there are different, geologies, climates, and everything in other worlds. I don't know how people could dispute that. If you want to argue against alien life, I get that, but there are planets out there. I mean, let's be honest, even the planets in our system, there are some that have some sort of
Right. I mean, the Milky Way galaxy alone, we've talked about this before, though we've talked so much more offline. But Milky Way galaxy, at least 100 billion stars. The average star is thought to have at least a handful of planets. More and more, it seems that at least some of those are going to be rocky, although we don't know if that's a precursor for the probability of life. And so, when you're talking about a trillion or more potential loci for life, I mean, it's, in fact, I just had this conversation a couple hours ago with my 15-year-old. We had Nova in the background. And it was the current, I think it's the most recent episode, the one on the James Webb Space Telescope, and they were talking about what we were saying, Brad, about how to characterize planets, right, and how Webb theoretically is going to make a big difference with that. And my 15-year-old, asked, well, what do I think about the probability of life? And this is, you and I have talked about this on the show before, but we've talked about this in terms of gaming, but like you said, through the gritty, real world, not what do we want to do for the game, but what do we think it actually is?
Yes.
Right? Because
the game became a vehicle for us. To move into the science of it.
The excuse to have these conversations. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's well, my thinking, since you didn't ask, but my daughter did, my thinking is there are so many possibilities. My educated guess, my educated hunch, it's not from nowhere, I really think that life is ubiquitous across the galaxy. I have no idea whether intelligent, sentient, self-aware life is. I have no idea, but life, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, to quote a movie that you and I like, it'd be a great waste of space.
It would be a great waste of space. But of course, we only have a single case study. And it's well, what's necessary? This is why I'm so intrigued by the upcoming missions to Jupiter. and to the moons because of what they'll mean. And it's funny you bring us to this topic. Ironic, don't you think?
Ironic, yeah, a little bit.
Because of our guest for this episode, someone we've been following online for quite some time. Certainly, personally, one of my favorite podcasts these days, Dr. Michael Wong, who's a planetary scientist, an astrobiologist, and a first-rate podcaster who manages to integrate science and Star Trek. And, I was actually thinking of saying this to him before we started recording, and then it just kind of went out of my head because A, it was asinine, and B, it wasn't entirely relevant. But I thought if he could somehow have an episode on cookies, then his podcast would have all of my favorite things together.
I don't even know where to go with that.
I really like cookies. Ask anyone. It's a
I know, but I'm trying to
Star
think.
Trek, science, and cookies covered in the same podcast. What's not to love?
Yeah, I guess.
Just
well,
saying,
why not? You don't have to have that discussion, but if it's a vidcast or a video podcast, you can just eat the cookies. So
that is true.
I mean, for me, I don't know what you
point.
drink. We've talked about this before. I have my iced. I don't go to like a Starbucks or something like that before episodes, but I have my iced coffee.
Right.
So for me, us discussing science, games, life, all sorts of things plus coffee.
We need to. Okay, it's totally honest here as Brad takes a sip of his iced calf.
Yeah.
We've never talked about this before, but we are remiss in not doing so. We need a coffee episode. Dead serious. Dead serious.
Yeah.
We need a coffee episode. That I
propose this. I'm proposing this in recording and not paused. I think we should have an episode of Star Trek Adventures and coffee.
Interesting.
We can intermingle them.
Yeah, we can pair different beans with different episodes. Maybe not.
Yeah,
but
who doesn't look a good blonde roast with an away mission?
I don't trust anyone who likes a good blonde roast, but that might be an overly pretentious episode. But no, I like the idea.
Hey, that
we have to have a coffee episode?
Blonde roasts have more caffeine than dark roasts.
Do they really?
Yeah. I've told you this 4 times.
Yeah, I know, but I probably just repress that knowledge.
Oh, you probably just ignore it. You tend to ignore anything. Most of what comes from me, other than when you record it and you're forced to listen to it.
That's true. What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but getting back to it.
Oh, okay. I was going to keep going with blonde roast, but no, let's go back.
Let's go. We'll come back. That's the episode. Star Trek Adventures.
Okay.
And coffee.
Stay tuned. Coming to a Dyson Mind podcast near you.
Yeah. So if you see that as a title, as we lose 90% of our listenership for that episode, just make sure you come back if that's not your thing.
Yes. So yeah, I don't. But I have to assume that coffee is really popular among our audience.
Oh yeah,
for so many reasons.
Oh yeah. Hey, getting back because we have to go to the interview here in a moment.
We do.
I will be honest. Now I am a what's the best way to put this? A science aficionado.
You're an armchair scientist.
Yeah, I'm not a trained scientist. My degrees are in business and technology, but I have been waiting since you first introduced me to Dr. Wong's podcast.
Yeah.
And to who he was to actually talk with him because his background, the discussions he has, and you're going to find him to be such an engaging person.
Oh yeah.
On the podcast. Again, we are continuing this theme of being very lucky to have really gracious and wonderful people join us.
Oh yeah.
And
like Mike, just the nicest, brightest, most interesting people. I mean, as we speak right now, if I grab my iPod phone and I go to podcasts, I am midway through his latest episode of Strange New Worlds. It's just a favorite. Absolutely.
Yeah. So please enjoy this, because I know I could have gone down the rabbit hole multiple times just talking with him and learning. It literally felt like I was a student in a class that I have always wanted to take.
Yeah, in a good way.
In a very good way. And I mean that with the greatest amount of humility and respect. It was really fun to listen. We're going to have him back on.
Yeah. And thanks in advance, Mike, because with the timing of our recording, clearly this was at the end of what for you, we know are really busy days in the office, really busy days in the lab, as it were. You had to have been tired. And yes. we appreciate you taking the time with us, because it was just such a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
Dr. Michael Wong is a Carnegie Postdoctoral Fellow at the Carnegie Institution for Science's Earth and Planets Laboratory, working with Robert M. Hazen, Shauna M. Morrison, Peter Gao, and others. His primary scientific interests are planetary atmospheres, habitability, biosignatures, and the emergence of life. He is also co-authoring a revised edition of the textbook Astrobiology, a Multidisciplinary Approach with Professor Jonathan Lunine. Dr. Wong's other passions include photography, writing, public speaking, graphic design, and playing a variety of team sports. He hosts a podcast called Strange New Worlds, which examines science, technology, and culture through the lens of Star Trek. Well, Mike, we were just talking beforehand a bit, but thank you so very much for joining us, wasting a little time with us. We've been fans of your podcast, and I've been fans of your work for a while. And so we want to talk Trek, we want to talk planetary science. But first I got to start with like a comment/question. It'll end with a question, I promise.
Okay.
And I was about to email you over the past week so many times that I'm like, no, I'm just going to save it. This can be our opener. A few years ago, so this is 2023, a few years ago-ish, I came across a musical that is easily one of my, I'm not kidding, one of my favorite musicals. And I didn't realize, I never made the connection, Mike, that you were in it. And I'm talking about Boldly Go, which I found on YouTube. I don't remember, I was searching for something. I don't remember how I came across it, but I came across like in one of the Caltech flyers or something online, and I'm like, I have to find this. I have to see this. And it's available on YouTube. And I sat down some weekend and I just watched it. And it was just so much fun. It's like, these are my people, but how can they act and sing, right? And you were in that.
Yeah, but I couldn't act or sing.
Well, you look good on stage. I mean, I saw you singing, so don't give me that. I would love to know. Right. I mean, I would love to know about that. How did that happen?
Oh my goodness. Thank you for asking about that. What a blast from the past. So I was in graduate school at Caltech. And I was going through my mid-grad school crisis years. I'm sure that's familiar to you. Just getting kind of lost, doing a little research, but really wondering, like, what am I actually doing? Where is this all leading? And in the I think it was the middle of my fourth year, maybe, of grad school, Caltech Theater decides to put on a Star Trek parody musical. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, coincided. It was 2016, as you mentioned. That was the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go and do this. Having had no theater background, having had absolutely no musical theater background for sure. But the wonderful thing about Caltech is that it's such a STEM-oriented school that the extracurriculars are kind of just like wide open, trying out for something in terms of musical theater. I didn't have to compete with any music majors. I didn't have to compete with any theater majors. I could just walk in there in my cosplay for the audition And I'm pretty sure it had to be like my Star Trek badge that won me the part, because it wasn't my voice, that's for sure. Still can't hold a tune, but I was able to land the role of Sulu. So this was a parody of the original Star Trek, which was just fabulous because I got to spend, Sulu's like always on the bridge, right? He's always there typing on his, the navigation console. And so I got to spend, like half the musical just on stage, miming Star Trek things. And it was just such a blast because this musical brought together a whole huge slice of the Caltech community, from undergraduates to grad students to staff to even JPL scientists, because JPL and Caltech have a very close relationship. And I was singing about Star Trek alongside people who looked up to me as their mentor, and also people who I looked up to as, thank you for running the spacecraft missions that made my thesis possible, Wow. And it was just simply one of the most remarkable things that I did. I got absolutely no research done in the months leading up to the show, and my thesis advisor definitely noticed. He told me afterwards, Mike, please never do anything like that again. But it was totally worth it.
That's so cool.
You got to stretch yourself, and see a different side. I find that's actually fascinating. I didn't know that Caltech did that. So
yeah, it's it's a great program, the theater program at Caltech, and the director of the theater program, believe it or not, is Brian Brophy, who played Commander Bruce Maddox in the Star Trek: The Next Generation episode, The Measure of the Man. So he was Maddox, the guy who tried to take apart Data, and
one of my absolute favorite episodes.
It's a stunning episode. It's always on people's top 10 lists of Star Trek episodes of all time, and he played the main, I guess, quote unquote, villain of the episode. But it's just just getting to work alongside him with all of his Star Trek knowledge.
That's cool.
He's a great actor. He has great stories about working with Patrick Stewart, and then just meeting a whole bunch of other like-minded scientists, Trekkies on that show. And also I went, the reason why I'd got no research done, the real reason is because I went to every single rehearsal that I could, even the ones that I wasn't, like, my part wasn't being rehearsed, because I knew that inevitably somebody else in the company would be too busy to come to that rehearsal, and I would get to fill in for their role. So I played Spock, I played Kirk, I played literally I played a red shirt chorus girl.
Did you really?
In all the rehearsals, I played like literally every single part, because it was so much fun to do, to embody a Klingon for an hour or two, or to just, oh my gosh, practice my William Shatner voice, that staccato kind of delivery, become as emotionless as Spock. It was so fun. Absolutely no regrets doing it. Met some lifelong friends who we still stay in touch. Met the person that I ended up starting my podcast with, Elise Cutts, who is now a science journalist. And it was just really fun.
And undoubtedly, those are all skills that served you for the thesis defense.
Oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe it. Absolutely. People always say, like, don't no, I'm actually being serious here, because
oh my God.
like science, I like to say that science isn't done until science is shared, right? And so that kind of like, the things that you do in theater actually translate into, science communication, whether it's just through a podcast or me getting up in front of hundreds of people to give a talk, at a conference. It's really, really important I still do the vocal warm-ups that I learned from Brian Brophy doing the Boldly Go musical before I go into like a really high stakes talk that I am nervous about, right? Because they just help center myself. They help get me in the mode of projecting my voice. And it's probably just psychological, you would know, to rather than like actually helping me with my delivery of that particular scientific content, but just to get me in the zone, right? It's a physical act to give a big talk. So I really did actually take a lot of lessons from being on stage that I translate into my scientific
Wow.
life.
That's really cool. And I mean, you do I don't really do any of this. You do a ton of it, but if anything, because this is an audio only podcast, and so if it's not just remarkably apparent from our voices, the two of us are at least a decade, at least on you, right? Probably more than that. But it's taken me a long time to really realize that as beautiful as science is, until it's disseminated, until it's communicated, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you discover. It doesn't matter the joy of it. You've got to tell someone. And toward that note, speaking of being in the zone, one of the things that I think impresses us most about your podcast, other than, like I remember saying to myself when I discovered your podcast that it's like science and Star Trek, and that's what this guy talks about. And I think I actually said out loud to my phone, "You had me at hello." Sad but true. But with the zone issue, when you record, or I don't know when you record, but when your episodes come out and when you talk to these fascinating people, even your sister, which could have sounded, I mean, I would have imagined that conversation would have sounded differently, but you are just so darn enthusiastic.
Oh, thank you.
Well, but I really mean that, because I think that's hard to find, and it, you don't have to out yourself right now, but is that legit? Like, you sound like you are just in love with what you're talking about when you're on those episodes.
Yeah, it's legit, because I view my podcast as a labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I do on the side, right? Because I'm a full-time scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast is just my excuse to have really cool conversations with really cool people. And, going from people who have actually been on Star Trek to people who make Star Trek happen to people just like me who love Star Trek and, maybe are scientists or are writers or something, it's just, it's wonderful to make that kind of human connection to somebody. And that's exactly what we're doing right here on Dice and Mind. So I'm really enjoying this, and I look forward to having you on Strange New Worlds one day when your book on leadership in Star Trek comes out.
Thank you. Count on it. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Can I ask a more? It's being the air quote non-scientist on the podcast. For those that are listening that may not necessarily know, we're going to have, obviously, in the show notes links to find you out on the web and everything. You're listed as a planetary scientist and astrobiologist.
Yeah.
Which that is, I mean, cool without even completely understanding everything. What is an astrobiologist?
Great question. Yeah. An astrobiologist is basically a person who is trying to study these two questions: where did we come from, and are we alone in the universe? So, basically trying to understand the origin of life here on Earth and potential origins of life elsewhere. And then also, how do we look for life elsewhere in the universe? Whether it's our next door planet Mars or a distant exoplanet that is orbiting a faraway star. What are the techniques? What are the technologies? What are the missions going to look like that actually goes out and explores those strange new worlds and seeks out new life? So I really am inspired by Star Trek. I've got to give Star Trek all of the credit here for really, inspiring me to pursue those questions, because that's the way I think about it in my mind, is that I always wanted to grow up and be like my heroes on Star Trek, in the scientific way, and hence my scientific journey, but then also, be those types of people, those types of characters, those types of role models, those types of leaders. And I'm really looking forward to, speaking to you two about leadership in Trek, and how, the science behind leadership is being depicted in Star Trek.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna get to Trek in a sec, but since you brought up leadership, I've got a question, and you are welcome, Mike, to say just no comment.
Okay.
But because I respect that. I don't think you will, but you never know. You are.
Jason's the controversial one of the both of us. Just FYI.
Yeah. We're just hardcore softballers, right? But in terms of leadership and in terms of the intersection with science, and like you said, you are an active and I know very busy scientist. I mean, you're involved in all kinds of stuff, and you, my friend, are involved in all kinds of stuff with some pretty prominent people as you become one yourself. So I got to ask, because I remember you're in Robert Hazen's lab or working with him, yes?
That's right. Yeah. Bob and I see each other almost every day. Yeah.
I was assigned his Science Matters when I was in college. I don't know if it was like the first edition or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna say wow is because it's neat that it's a book and not we're that old. But it was an early edition, and it was one of those books where I've got most of my college books, but it was one of those books where there are certain things you read, right? Like the Tao of physics. You might not agree with everything, or it might have been a little sophomoric in retrospect, but like you're never gonna, especially the later books, like you're never gonna leave that. It's always, or whatever, Asimov and whatnot. But Science Matters just opened my mind, and I've read him since, and he's such a preeminent scientist, and he's such a beautiful science writer. Like that's a rare thing. Like he's up there with people like Sapolsky, right? This is this is my opinion only, but it's hard to write beautifully and deeply about science, much less tell the tale of the evolution of a planet. Like I'm blocking on the title of that when I put that down, and I was like,
Story of Earth, probably.
Thank you. Story of Earth. And it's like, so this planet has been alive in a way I never even recognized for the past few billion years, several billion years. And I'm just curious, especially since you're seeing him, talking to him every day, like to stay focused on you as a scientist, to be able to work with someone with that knowledge base and that awareness. I mean, he's been at this for a long time, right? What does that do for you in terms of being a scientist, in terms of models of leadership in science? I'm curious. I would love to pick your brain.
Where to start? I guess I have to just begin by saying I've been very lucky in my career to have had some incredible mentors, and Bob is the latest one. I look up to him so much. I have to just pinch myself to every morning, because I get a slice of Bob Hazen's time. And he wants to spend that time with me too. And that's just like, what is going on? Because I look up to him so much for all the same reasons that you do. He's an amazing scientist, so knowledgeable about Earth and planetary science, and also just the most incredible and prolific writer of science. He'll go home and say, I think I'm done for the day, and he'll come back the next morning with like a whole brand new manuscript, and we're just like, Bob, what were you were supposed to sleep last night? But what impresses me the most is his passion for it. He just can't stop himself from doing science. And when we're having our conversations, every once in a while, I'll just, it's not necessarily something that I said, but maybe something that one of our other group mates say, and I'll see tears start to form in Bob's eyes because he's just loving it so much. This is a guy in his mid-70s.
That says it all.
Who basically, has the enthusiasm and the open-mindedness of a 7-year-old. He is still a kid at heart, still discovering the universe, wanting to make discoveries and wanting to share them with other people all the time, nonstop. And to have him as a mentor, as a colleague, and as a friend is just one of the most inspiring things. It makes me want to look forward to going into work on Monday morning. I'm just like, this has got to be the most wonderful job ever. How lucky am I to want the weekend to be over so that I can go in and work with Bob Hazen. It's great.
That's really
well. You could tell you obviously have that same passion. You could just tell by, when you're talking about it. And again, I come from a different arena, a different ecosystem, but I've told Jason this, and I've told Aaron, his co-writer on the books, and I'll say it to you as well, is for me, looking in at scientists like you, that gives me hope, because I function in a different realm where we don't necessarily think that broadly. outside of a balance sheet or whatever the case may be. So that's why I'm fascinated by asking these type of questions. And I do the same thing as even knowing Jason 30 years. And it gives me hope to see and to know that there are people like you out there who are stretching our knowledge and pushing us beyond just basic understanding. So not to, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way at all. But question, why did you choose the Titan as your background? Now, for those that don't know, the background, this is audio only, but behind Mike, there is a phenomenal picture of the Titan that you'd see on the end credits for season 3 of Picard. So, and obviously watching those credits, I think Terry Matalas said something on Twitter or something like that. What after the first episode, we start looking at the credits and starting to decipher all the little things that the notes, Titan, where the damage is, the shipyard, all of that. It's so I gotta ask, what made you choose the Titan war damage screen?
Well, it's just a really beautiful image. That's got to be reason number one. The production work on Star Trek Picard season 3 has been phenomenal. I know they brought back a bunch of the old guard, like Mike Okuda, to come and do a lot of these, LCARS type graphic design, and it really struck me as wow, these people really care about the legacy of Star Trek and trying to honor that for the fans. And that was really wonderful. To be 100% honest, I am not the biggest fan of the Titan itself as a starship. I think it looks a little weird. I much prefer, the more smooth contours of, say, the Galaxy class Enterprise D or the USS Voyager and things like that. But hey, it's our hero ship this season, so I made it my Zoom background.
Very, very, very ecumenical, very, very tolerant.
They tried to merge. You could tell how with the Titan they tried to merge the old and the new. If you look at the Titan versus like season 2 with the Stargazer at the end.
And they've got a rationale, right, in terms of planetary utopia and whatnot. So on this note, I'm curious because Brad and I are always interested in this. What was your foray into Star Trek? How did you get the bug?
Yeah, it's got to be my dad. When I was a little kid, I remember watching TNG with him, actually, when I was growing up. And yeah, he was a fan of the original series when he was a kid. He watched TNG as an adult, and it wasn't like anything that he was like, now, Mike, sit down, we're going to watch Star Trek together. It was just something on TV that, I really I just fell in love with watching alongside my dad. I remember being super mesmerized by Data when I was a kid. This person is acting kind of weird. He looks kind of weird too with this like metallic skin. What is up with him? I didn't have any understanding of what an android was. I was in elementary school at the time, so it didn't make any sense to me, but it was just mesmerizing to watch Brent Spiner's performance and to see him do it all over again in Star Trek Picard, seasons 1, 2, and 3, just really starring as all of these versions of the Soong androids and the Soong family. He's just such a masterful actor, one of my favorites to watch, and he still got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's...
What do you think of okay, now I'm getting into the fanboy era. What do you think so far of... Now, Jason, I'm going to break the fourth wall.
By the time we can talk about anything. This is coming out after Picard.
I sometimes spoil inadvertently, so I always have to ask Jason's my clock. So
Brad suffers from some temporal distortion regularly when it comes to recording.
What are your thoughts? Because as we're recording this, we are waiting mere days for the series finale. Episode 10. Jason and I probably all three of us have watched episode 9, so we're up to speed. What's your take on what they've done this year as kind of a swan song for the next generation?
I just don't want it to end. As the episodes tick down, and as I love each one so much, and I realize how little there is left, I don't want it to end. And I hope that it isn't the end of the next generation era of Star Trek, which includes in my mind Deep Space Nine and Voyager. I'd love to see more of the legacy characters figure out what they're up to. And I think if hopefully, I have no idea. I'm not on, Paramount Plus's stats or anything. I have no idea what the viewership is like, but my fingers are crossed that Trekkies are tuning in all around the globe to see this, and just showing by their actions, by their viewership, that we want more of this, because it's been such an incredible journey, and I've really enjoyed season 3. I'll have to say, season 1 I was super hyped for, but it didn't quite, it disappointed, honestly, towards the very end. Season 2 I got super hyped for, and then again it disappointed by the end. It's sort of like, once you get to the back half of the season, it sort of just slid downhill for me for both of those first 2 seasons of Picard. And so going into season 3, I was just like, I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm not going to get super hyped about it. I'm just going to see what happens. And they've knocked it out of the park. Honestly, it's been great.
I will say I saw this in the news.
You pulling the data? I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Picard it's the first Star Trek series to break the top 10 in streaming. As of the week ending the 19th, that was number 9 on the list. Mandalorian, for those that are Disney fans, was number 3. So just that gives people some. And Ted Lasso, for those, I don't technically watch all those, but that just tells you what's in this list. And for Picard to meet that and break that top 10,
it's gained traction.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So do you? Because let's do it this way. We would love it if you would talk a bit about your wonderful podcast, especially like the genesis. No pun intended, but like how because you've got all this free time. It's like, why not? I'm not really doing anything professionally, so I'll just start a podcast because that's not a time suck. I mean, how did because you've been at it for a while, and sometimes your episodes are more frequent than other times, but you talk about it.
Right.
Which is
exactly. Cool. Yeah. So the podcast doesn't follow a regular schedule because I feel like I just want to do it when I can. Right. And so maybe that's every week for 4 weeks in a row. And then I take 4 weeks off because I'm busy traveling. And I do that so that it doesn't feel like work, because I don't want it to feel like work. I want it to feel like fun. And so, I think the genesis of it was 2017. Star Trek Discovery was coming out. Star Trek back on TV or streaming TV. And I was listening to other Star Trek podcasts. I was listening to people dissect the plot, dissect the costumes, try to figure out what the characters are doing, the mystery of Lorca, etc. But nobody was talking about the science. And I was like, that's weird. There's a lot of cool science in this show, or, the show is trying at least to make a connection to certain scientific areas. And I searched for a Science of Star Trek podcast, and I was like, is there really no Science of Star Trek podcast? This can't be. And then I realized, wait a minute, I think I know some people who would be able to speak to the science in Star Trek Discovery. So I decided, why not me? Why not start a podcast? I was very lucky to have a willing co-host in Elise Cutts, who had a complementary knowledge base to myself. I was much more on the physical side of the sciences at that time, and she was coming in with a geobiology background. So we covered a wide range of sciences. Of course, we'd never had a psychologist, but it was good to start off with and talk about the science of space, the science of tardigrades, the science of biosignatures. Eventually, we did get a sports psychologist on.
That was really interesting.
Yeah. And then, I'm looking forward. There was another psychologist from the University of Washington in the astrobiology program there. They actually have psychologists studying, human interaction with technology as we go into space. Also thinking about octopus brains as sort of like alternate modes of intelligence and what they can teach us about potentially intelligence in other worlds.
Was that the couple episodes around 10C, species 10C?
That one was different? Actually Professor Sherry Wells Jensen from Bowling Green State University. Sherry was one of the consultants, I think, for the generation of 10C's language. It was really amazing to talk to her, because she is blind, has been blind from birth, and so perceives the world in a different way. What a wonderful kind of person to ask to consult on a completely alien species that also perceives and communicates in a very different way from the normal human being.
Because one of the things I think we appreciate about your interviews is like that one, like I said, that one to me is really emblematic of this, but you don't shy away from the depth of the science. Like you got deep into semantics. Like I was saying there, like this isn't surface level, and you do that with a lot of your guests, especially the scientist guests of look, here's your field. What do you think? Tell me about your research. And you can tell they feel comfortable, but it's not gloss, and that's refreshing.
Yeah, I do try to do a little bit of homework beforehand. So I try to read their papers, right, for the subject that we're about to discuss. So in the specific case of Sherry Wells Jensen, I think I read like 3 or 4 of her works, just because it's not my field. If I were interviewing another planetary scientist or an astrobiologist, I probably wouldn't need to read up those papers. But because I was interviewing somebody who was a professor of linguistics, and I have no background in linguistics. I mean, I took like a linguistics class in college, but that barely counts. I really did need to make sure that as the host, I could ask somewhat intelligent questions.
Yeah.
And so I did a little background reading. Yeah.
Without any spoilers on your part here, not in terms of people, but I'm curious, are there topics? Are there topics or there threads you would love to be able to address on your show in the future? Whether it's near or distant, like things you just haven't had a chance to, and you just think it's such a good fit. It's such a good fit for Trek.
Oh, that's such a great question. Yes, there are. I mean, okay. Well, besides the obvious leadership in Star Trek, which we've mentioned numerous times now, I also want to do an episode about multiverses. We've seen this concept of the multiverse in Star Trek a lot. There is a scientific concept of the multiverse. Actually, there are many different flavors of the scientific concept of a multiverse. And so, really dissecting, okay, what are the possibilities for there being other universes? Why do we suspect that there are actually other universes out there from an astrophysical and cosmological point of view? I did reach out to Sean Carroll.
I knew that was coming.
A physicist. He's an amazing science communicator himself. He's one of the few people who has ever said no to me in terms of coming on my podcast. So one day, Sean, I will get you. Yeah. But he was too busy that time. So and then another one that I really want to do, sticking with the astrophysics theme, is sort of like the end of our universe and what that's like. So you may remember this really awesome Deep Space Nine episode where there are these genetically enhanced folk who were really concerned about the heat death of the universe, right? And trying to prevent that. And, that is like something of cosmological proportions. Like, how in the world do you prevent the heat death of the universe? That is baked into the second law of thermodynamics. And that's like something you just can't, it's like trying to turn off gravity. Well, I guess in Star Trek, they kind of can, but that's magic. But, I'd love to talk to somebody about that. Yeah. It's cute.
So like a Katie Mack or someone like that?
You know exactly who I want to ask.
Hilarious.
I've got her book on my bookshelf. I'm going to read her book first.
It's good.
Because again, I don't know anything about this. And then I'm going to email her and say, would you like to be on Strange New Worlds?
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's good and it's super current. Like there was and I'm blocking, it's on my shelf somewhere here. There was a book along the same lines that came out late 90s. Right. I mean, so it was dated, and like I remember reading it one night in bed, like toward the end, and it's like you don't think you can get excited about proton decay, but at a certain point it's like, ooh, this is fascinating. But but that was 20 some years ago. And her book, it's like right now. And not that physics has learned anything in 20 some years, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is so much fun. We really appreciate you taking the time with us.
Of course.
It's just everything you're doing. Also, we noticed, so are you still doing photography?
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest hobbies when I was in college and grad school. I, did photography for the newspapers and the yearbook.
Nice. Yeah.
Since I left grad school, being not a student anymore,
Yeah.
it's harder to contribute to the student newspaper and to the student yearbook. They'd be like, what are you doing here? You're like a real adult, go away. So I still do photography in terms of like travel photography, but it's a lot less, because one of my favorite things to photograph was events on campus, sports games, things like that. So it's waned in the past few years, especially due to COVID, but I still enjoy it. Yeah.
You've got some really lovely nature pieces too.
You.
I'm partial to those.
That's Jason's realm, is nature photography.
Well, it was trying to get back into it, right? Kind of a similar thing. Yeah. Very, very cool. Man.
Hey, before we do wrap up, I want to plug your podcast just for a second, because I want people to understand that you don't have to be a scientist to listen. Most of the time, I think all of us who are podcast listeners are looking for entertainment and for education. And I think it's important. We try to do the same thing here, but if they listen to that, I learn, and I'm not a scientist by trade, but it's very accessible material, even if you get down like you were just talking about. So that's why I would recommend folks, even if they are in a different realm of study, to listen, because again, going back to what I said before, I learned from listening to you all, and so I have a little bit. When Jason paid you and convinced you to join us, I didn't.
Don't say that on air. Don't say that on air.
Sorry.
Cut that out. We'll cut it out. It's okay.
Yeah, cut it out. No, I was actually very excited because I always love to talk to people who to the podcast that we listen to. So
well, and so Strange New Worlds, right? Strange New Worlds, a science and Star Trek podcast. And I gotta say, kudos on naming it, because the timing and the coincidence could not be better.
Yeah. Well, again, I named the podcast in 2017, before Strange New Worlds, the TV show, was even a glimmer in somebody's eye. But the runner-up, I was debating, should it be called Strange New Worlds or should it be called Treknobabble? That was the alternative, Treknobabble. And I was like, you know what? I'm a planetary scientist. I study Strange New Worlds, so it's going to be Strange New Worlds.
And it's accessible, right? Like, people get it. Right. There's no inside joke there. It's just Strange New Worlds. Now, you've got quite a bit online, right? You've got a bunch of talks online. I mean, I'm not kidding, to go back to the very beginning. Everybody, if you Google Boldly Go Caltech, that should be enough to get you there. I'm seriously thinking about watching it again once semester's over. Much of what I know about Andorians and their vocal skills, it's from that musical. It's so impressive. It's so impressive. If people want to, who aren't already familiar with you and your work, fun research, whatever, if they're not already familiar, beyond the podcast, where do you want them to go? What should they check out?
Oh, for my work.
Anything.
Well, I've got a website. You can look at all of the projects that I'm currently engaged in. They have links to my papers if you're really interested in doing a deep dive into the science. Like you said, I have a number of Science of Star Trek talks. That's one of my favorite ways of disseminating science. And I was lucky enough last year to do a talk, my very first one, at a Star Trek convention, which was a dream come true.
Cool.
I wasn't able to record that one, but I did it again for my workplace, for the Carnegie Institution for Science. So that lecture is online. It's on YouTube, and it even comes with a panel of other scientists at Carnegie talking about how their science is related to Star Trek, and I moderate that. So I would say go check those out. They were a lot of fun to put together. I'd say that's it.
Really appreciate you taking the time with us this evening, Mike.
Yeah, and please, we have to have you back, because we didn't even touch on the Star Trek stuff that we could have.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay, because I could have probably, I would have I would have taken the podcast out a little bit because I would have started quizzing you, and you would have, well, because I'm so fascinated by it, it would have turned more into a one-on-one type course, and that's what that's
get a tutorial, right?
We won't come back after that. So,
that's awesome.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, no problem. I'm surprised that you didn't ask me about RPGs.
We never want to.
Hold on.
Okay, no.
Isn't this dice in mind?
It is. We never want to assume.
No,
right? Yeah. Okay, we're formally asking you about RPGs. Do you play anything?
Well, yeah. So I have played Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a casual player. If I get invited to a campaign, I'll play, but it's, I've never DM'd or anything like that. And over the pandemic, a few friends of mine, we decided to do a Star Trek Adventure. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Star Trek Adventures.
Star Trek Adventures, yeah.
Cool.
And that was a lot of fun while it lasted. Of course, it fizzled out because people got, burnt out of Zoom, and we're just like, But it was cool, and so I really do enjoy doing RPGs. Awesome. It's fun. It really gets me back into that like enjoyment that I had acting. For the Star Trek musical, just embodying somebody new, trying out new things, being creative, and just having fun. So that's I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's so
I
cool.
think we can start to build our all-star cast. We might call you at some point and say, hey, you want to play Star Trek Adventures with us?
You would make a great GM for STA. Seriously, that's I can see. I think you'd be a good fit for that.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm up to it, but
you're probably a little bit busy. But...
Yeah, I mean, maybe not now, but right.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it up.
Tenure or something.
Oh yeah. Then you get tenure. You just see him walking around campus, no pants, and an armful of STA source books.
That's gonna be me.
That's gonna be you. Well, good. I hope that happens. Yeah,
no, I'm glad you brought up the RPG thing. Like Jason said, we don't always assume, and we can sometimes get so into like Star Trek or science or other cases, Star Wars, and all. We sometimes forget.
Like we want to know the people. We know the games. So
Mike,
just a delight. Thank you so much. To quote a famous podcaster, "We'll see you out there."
Oh, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
I truly love it when we have scientists on the show. Like I mentioned before, I guess I'm an armchair scientist, not trained. So listening to you and he talk, and listening to he has such a breadth of knowledge, and it's about such a cutting edge. I hate to say it like that.
No, but that's true.
A cutting edge field.
That's exactly what was on my mind after we hung up with Mike, and honestly for the days following that, I thought, okay, and honestly it's been with me for a while, in the sense of, okay, so I look at my research and I think, okay, I'm involved in some stuff right now that seeks to demonstrate the potential of like fairly well-known interventions. Right. Maybe there's something novel there, maybe there's not, but it's about applying it in the real world, if you will. But Mike really is at the cutting edge, working with people who are at the cutting edge to do something that I respect immensely, which is not merely good research, good science, and not merely doing it with obviously such joy that he has. I mean, it's infectious. But he and his team, I mean, he's involved in the process of discovery, right? Discovering elements of the world. Amazing.
Well, and 2 points. One, it's profound. I'm going to go to the other point and I'll come back. I loved it at the end when he said, aren't we going to talk about games?
That was awesome.
That was so cool.
He's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've played.
Yeah. Oh, I know what the other point was. This was the more profound point for me, is that, in my realm, I do my own, this, I do a lot of research, self-research in business and economics. And so for me to see people like Mike out there researching, and doing what he's doing, it gives me hope, because I know that he is just one of many people driving us forward.
Yeah, right.
I'm not in that field. We drive us forward in a different way, but literally expanding our horizons, expanding our knowledge, reminding us that, we are one species on one ball in a vast universe.
Yeah.
And even, independent of my faith and all that, I don't see any, and we don't have to dive into this too far. I don't see any issue with, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So for me
of course not.
To see people like Mike out there doing the research he does, it just reminds me that as much as we see what's going on that's negative in the news and such, there are people out there that just don't get enough recognition, press, or thanks for all of that. So Mike, thank you for continuing to do what you're doing.
I think what else stands out to me, and stood out right away about Mike, was that in addition to all of that, which is true, right? I mean, he's just a first-rate scientist.
Oh yeah.
And he's working with literally some of the best people in the field as he becomes one of them, and is just so modest. And that's so nice. That's what we need. That's how science should be. That's how society should be. Just quite the role model for a lot of young scientists, I think, who will come after him.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we're just a tad older, but just to see such brilliance. And again, Mike, we're not being patronizing. I literally, I'm a little bit in awe that I get to talk to people like you, because I'm so in a different realm on a daily basis. And so it gives me joy, it gives me hope, and I feel very humbled when we get to talk to people like Wong.
It's time for the GM Corner.
Instead of our regularly scheduled GM Corner,
for the next 4 hours.
Yeah, for the next 4 hours, we are going to be in the Picard corner.
That's right. So, as Will
on the
Wheaton
bridge
would say, red alert.
Yes. So if you have not watched the final
entirety
episode of Picard, or
if you haven't watched the entirety of Star Trek Picard season 3, which may be indisputably the single best season of Trek ever made so far, please pause this recording, reevaluate what you've been doing with your life, go binge all 10 episodes, and come back this evening to listen to this.
Yeah, and call in sick, do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do.
Okay. So
it's like that episode. It's like that episode of Portlandia, that one scene, that one sketch where they're watching the reimagined BSG Battlestar Galactica, and they keep calling in from work. They get fired. The power's turned off, and it's only then, when they can't keep streaming, that they get off the couch and shave.
Oh God, I haven't seen that. I have not seen that. I didn't know you watched. I didn't know you watched shows like that.
I didn't, but I saw that one, and of course that was BSG, so it wasn't recent. But it's still one of my favorite shows.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Okay, back to
countdown from 5, and then we're gonna start talking. 5,
4,
3, 2,
1. Time's up.
Okay. Holy moly. I gotta tell you, I love the season.
Oh my God.
Episode 9, when they warped into the Fleet Museum and the doors opened, the station doors opened, and there was the Enterprise D.
The fat one.
Yes, I will be honest, I lost it.
It was you started texting me while you were watching it. And I'm like,
but you had watched it before. Watched it before
but I'm
me.
Stop. So Brad was 2 or 3 times during episode 9. You text, and you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" And I keep responding,
Wait.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait. The as
The music. The music.
okay, let's
though.
start there. The
When it-
soundtrack is
Oh,
the whole
yeah.
soundtrack is so I've been you pre-ordered and I
Mhm.
waited until I stayed up to download it when it was available for streaming. Just yesterday I finished listening through it
Okay.
front to back because it's 45 pieces.
Yes.
And so a bunch of that was in the car, and then some of the stuff was, like if I was in the kitchen or whatever, I had a little away time from my family, so that so I didn't just have like music disrupting them when they were doing whatever. And wow, I mean, you and I have been nonstop on this soundtrack since the first episode. It's a masterpiece.
And I used to play horn back in the day, and when the
Oh
D
my
came
God.
out of the station and it was the TMG theme and it was total horn with trumpet descant, I got goosebumps.
Oh yeah.
And
The use of brass in this soundtrack was
gosh.
so strong the whole way through. Oh man, so good. But the whole soundtrack, I mean, incredible.
Yeah. And so, all this buildup,
Yeah.
the changelings,
Such a complex story.
The Borg, you and I sent you a little snippet video where they in effect mesh together the whole timeline of the Borg and all the major events that really drove us up right to episode 9.
So one of the things that I keep reading online is the recommendation to, and I should say this is by people really immersed like in Trek, right? Far more than we are. Like they write about it, comment about it for a living, that type of thing. One of the things that right away, as soon as the journalists and whatnot had seen 9 and 10, the episodes, was you need to watch the series again. I'm sorry, you need to watch the season again from start to finish and pick up all of the hints and tie-ins to appreciate how tightly constructed the whole story is, start to finish. I think we're both planning on doing that before long.
Yeah. Absolutely. And how it ended with Captain Seven on the Enterprise
so
G.
Good.
She and obviously, hopefully they execute on a new season.
Who would have thought Starfleet would give a starship to a thief, a pirate, and a spy?
Yeah, and someone who had been two who had been Borg.
It's so okay. So episode 10, one of the things that stands out is it has essentially 3 endings. And I mean, if you think about it, like on the final ready room for Picard, right, when Will Wheaton is interviewing Terry Matalas and Jerry Ryan, which you had told me, and you were right, we haven't talked a lot about that yet, because I just watched that the other day ago. That is a wonderful interview. And Matalas said that. I mean, there was a separate ending for each of the threads in the story. Like I think I told you on the phone a few days ago, like I thought we were at the end of episode 10, and I was like, that was really, really, really good. I don't know if it blew my mind, but it was really good, and I just assumed, okay, it's the end. And then it reset, and it went to the next tie-up. And I'm like, whoa. And then it did it again. Yeah. And then you have the credits scene.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, neither of us is like, neither of us gets overly emotional watching TV, whatever.
No.
But this whole season, and especially 9 and 10.
Oh,
this was something else.
And the way, and I'll say this, I liked all the TNG movies. Yeah. I grew up, I am old enough where I am post TOS TV
Yep.
but I'm old enough
We
to
grew up with the
have
movies.
with the movies.
Absolutely.
So Captain Kirk, Spock, all of
Yeah.
them. TNG came in later. I was a late starter to that. I didn't really start watching it until I met you, so I was about 5 or 6 years behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Story of your life.
But pretty much. But ultimately, you're not going to edit that out, of course.
Oh,
you're going to edit out.
No,
You're going to edit
no.
out all the other stuff.
I don't edit out truth. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. But just the way I never felt like we got a really good send off of the TNG crew. Kind of like what we did with Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country, which has just, and it's just, I mean, I remember being in the theater seeing Undiscovered Country for the first time, and the send-off, simply the signatures of the actors to that wonderful theme.
Yes.
And it was so well done, so meaningful. And we never got anything like that. Never got anything like that to TNG.
No, and to, and there's a lot of folks involved in it, to Terry Matalas, to, Dave Blass, all these people who are out there who were involved in this. They really gave
hats off, man.
I think the TOS crew got a great send off.
Yep.
Really beautiful ending.
Yep.
This one tops it. I think, in all honesty, like you said, I think 9 and 10 alone were my 2 favorite episodes of Star Trek any season, anything. And you know me, I'm a diehard DS9 fan.
And like, if you take those 2 episodes together, honestly, you could just take 10, but if you take 9 and 10 together, I mean, I haven't thought this through, so I'm not going to commit on a rank, if you will, but, and you can disagree with this, definitely, I know others will, but we're talking about a quote-unquote film of the caliber, minimally, of Wrath of Khan, of Undiscovered Country. I mean,
I'll agree.
Yeah, this was no Generations, fun as that was.
It was fun. I don't have anything. A lot of people didn't like Nemesis. I didn't mind it.
I thought it was great, and it had a wonderful ending, but then it ended. But another threat, because you mentioned DS9, another thing that I think is so well done, and so, for those of us so immersed in the lore, mindset, etc. of Star Trek, and who want to see it, who are rejoicing literally in all of the Trek that's available now. I felt like the first time that the relevant threads from TNG, DS9, and Voyager,
yes,
right, were, I mean, I would have liked even more DS9, but something's up, because they didn't do much with that. Something's got to be coming, but still, there were threads from DS9, Voyager, and TNG, and they were woven together in season 3 of Picard, right? It acknowledged that this all happened in the same galaxy, even though we didn't see many allies and enemies who would be interesting to us. Still, like, I mean, I just said not much DS9, but of course, my God, the whole thing centers around the Dominion, sort of.
Yeah. Or the Changelings at a minimum.
The Changelings, certainly, right. Yeah. Right. Man. So just so well.
And obviously, for many, I saw a few comments here and there that it was really designed more nostalgic for fans. Of course it was. Of course there's nostalgia there. We got to see the bridge of the D again. We got to see the D fly,
looking better than it ever did.
You said this to me. You messaged and said, "Did you notice how well and how awesome the D looked battling the Borg cube?" We never saw it like that.
They never had the time or the budget.
No.
Even as popular as TNG became, they never had the time or the budget to really do this. And then flip that around. So in the interview with on the Ready Room, Matalas said, they spent, budget was still an issue. They spent, for example, 6 months rebuilding the bridge of the D, and they had 2 days to shoot, and that was it. But they had the budget, and don't you think though, the entire sequence of the Enterprise D, and that Borg cube, which was I think it might have been an even larger than normal cube, I believe.
Well,
But
I think it was. I
yeah.
think it was almost like some of the stations that existed around transwarp.
Yeah, right.
Portals and all. It was
very
like
good.
one of those,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So
Now,
but
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm going to transition us to something else within the Picard verse.
Okay.
But
So perfect. So I'll just add this little piece here of when TNG ended with All Good Things, widely recognized as the best. This might be debatable now, but at least up until Picard's ending, All Good Things is widely recognized as the best final episode of any Trek, sometimes the best final episode of almost any series, period. Beautifully done. But when that ended in what, 94? 93?
93, 94.
93, and then Generations came out in 94.
I think it was 94. I think it was 94.
Okay, so 94, 90, then when we were in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that ended, I remember being moved by it. It was very bittersweet. It was wonderful. It was beautiful, and it felt like we've come to an end. We knew that there was a movie coming. The movie came out a handful of. You're right. It's 94. The movie came out 5 or 6 months after. But still, it felt sort of final. My feeling at the end of Picard remains the opposite. I have never felt so, and you said this to me, I have never felt so optimistic, so invigorated, looking to the next step with the end of a series as I have with episode 10. The way they handle it, especially with the Enterprise NCC 1701 G. And I'll be honest, if we dwell on this, at least one of us is going to have tears in his eyes again.
Oh yeah, and that's where I wanted to transition.
Yeah. Let's go
there.
No
one can see, but we were today talking about backgrounds, and I have the G as my background.
Okay, so it looks. I thought it was the Titan because I can't. Yeah. There's the G.
Yeah, there it is. There's the G. Yep. It's. I have to set it up. It's mirrored right now, but I really hope, and obviously it's set up for some sort of future, whether it's a mini series, whether it's
don't want a mini series. I want a full series. Don't call it legacy. It's got to be forward looking. Not you.
Yeah.
Them.
Yeah. New voyages, whatever they want to call it. I don't know. So, but Captain Seven, Rafi is number 1. Jack is special counselor. Yeah. Them warping out,
and a solid bridge crew of younger actors and great characters and highly diverse in terms of species and everything.
It feels like it's a really good compliment to Strange New Worlds.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Right? It feels like it's a really good compliment.
And that's one of the reasons we decided to have this conversation in GM Corner now, because we're about a month out from the end of Picard, and to the day we're a month away from the start of Strange New Worlds, which I deeply love and think season 1 was without question the strongest first season of any Trek ever produced. But no, I am exactly there with you. 100%. It's got that vibe, but it presumably wouldn't be quite so episodic. Although honestly, I would love it if I'm gonna use your idea because I think it sounds great. If Star Trek New Voyages. If Star Trek New Voyages #New Voyages. If Star Trek New Voyages, that's going to be showing up on our Twitter feed soon.
Oh yeah, it is.
If Star Trek New Voyages is made, I would like to see it leaning more heavily toward the episodic than toward the thematic, right? It would have to be if they want to have like a 5 to 7 season run, right? Doesn't have to be as episodic as Strange New Worlds. Maybe something like DS9, which you adore so much.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like 5 through 7 of DS9 of you got your episodes, but it's always big, not like The Mandalorian, where in the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's like, and we're advancing the story.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like there can be an undercurrent of a serialized story going on.
Strong undercurrent.
as you move through the seasons of this show, they can still have it episodic. I mean, in some ways, Voyager was similar. There's this, they had these mini undercurrents with the Kazon and these other.
The 7 of 9 storyline worked out pretty well.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, look now, and obviously, what I have always, the one thing about Voyager that always kind of just, I was off for me. It wasn't a negative. It was just off for me. Was
how Ensign Kim was never promoted.
Well, okay, let me rephrase that. There are two things about Voyager.
What was the other thing?
Well, I was watching last night, by the way. I don't think Garrett Wang ever got a chance to direct an episode, and normally they allow people to do that.
I'm not sure he ever got a chance to really act either. He's a good actor, but his character, they really tied his hands behind his back. Sorry, what's the other thing?
I just was going to say, I wanted to see more progression in terms of growth with 7 than what we saw in the series. And I know there was growth. I wanted to see more.
Really?
And we got to see it in Star Trek Picard. She was with the Fenris Rangers.
I was going to say season 1.
Yeah.
Definitely. And a little bit in season 2.
Yeah. And for her now, we saw such a progression. I really am excited about seeing Jerry Ryan as a captain of the Enterprise. Who else? I just thinking without having to go out and create a new, create a new character. Who better to do this? And that's why I'm so hoping that it wasn't just them warping off into the ether and we'll never see it again.
Well, I mean, I kept wondering how is Metalis getting away with making such an obvious bid for the next series?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm like, and I understand that they wouldn't want to announce anything because that in effect in itself is a spoiler.
Actually, so granted, we know that they've covered things as well. They should, understandably. I don't want to date when we're recording this because we're a little in advance, but in fact, I didn't send it to you because you were busy today. But Trek Movie, right, one of our favorite websites. Hi, Lori. Trek Movie had a synopsis of the comments made, and from between Metalis and Kurtzman from a variety of sources, basically indicating, nothing's being done, but everything's on the table, and Kurtzman is aware. He has heard the fans' desire. At which point I went out and signed one of the what do you call those? One of the petitions.
Yeah. In change.org. Yeah, I need to go do
so
that.
if you're all in the mood to sign at change.org, #New Voyages. But it's being heard. I mean, the buzz is pretty significant. But we know that there is a Star Trek Section 31 streaming movie, film, TV movie, if you will, announced. I think that is the perfect way to do it. I don't want and I don't need a Section 31 series. Please don't screw up the timeline any worse. But she's a wonderful actor, and it's a wonderful story, and you can't just drop the Guardian of Forever and not get back to that.
Oh,
so
yeah, good call.
like a 2-hour special TV event, right? That is to me ideal. And maybe as, so I don't mean to monopolize this, maybe as we wrap up this episode, just because next week we're not going to probably talk Trek. We will have to take a breather.
And as we do this, we still have to talk about all the announcements during Star Wars Celebration. We'll have to do that in the next episode.
That's gonna have to be the next, because there's a ton and they all look good. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to.
All I'm going to say is #ecstatic, because I am so happy. I know there's a lot of divisiveness out there about a movie after.
Haters going to hate.
Skywalker.
No, that's exactly what you and I want.
Yes.
Put it 15 years out there. Right?
Yes.
But then I also equally love how there's going to be a film targeting 25,000 years ago, because that's not only the start of the Jedi and the recognition of the Force, but that's the start of the galaxy as we know it, and hyperspace lanes being created and everything. So that's coming.
That I'm excited too, because that really pushes the timeline back way before even the High Republic.
Everything, because it's all Apocrypha.
Yeah.
And so we can shed light on that. To bring it back to Trek, to close us out, as this drops, we have Star Trek Picard, so wonderfully, beautifully complete. We are exactly 1 month from the release of Strange New Worlds Season 2. We're both very much looking forward to that. That's huge. We are looking at Lower Decks returning.
Yes.
What was that already? Season 4?
Yeah.
That's amazing. My estimate, they say late summer. I'm assuming that's going to be August. Maybe late. I think that's kind of what they did last time. Late August, maybe
early September.
Early September. Yeah. And then Winter for Prodigy. Shout out to Aaron Walke, my favorite of all the Star Trek producers. That's for a completely unrelated reason. And I'm really looking forward to that. And that's winter. So I'm guessing what they did last year was like November-ish. So I'm thinking we're maybe gonna have like June into August, September into November, probably like right before the end of the year, maybe Prodigy. And then next year early we're gonna have, the finale of Discovery. So it's a heck of a lineup.
Well, and this is my last comment because I can open up a can of worms. So no, you're gonna close us out. But episode 9, it's not like we could use the Enterprise E Worf. That was not my fault. That ties in potentially to Prodigy because
you mentioned that. Brilliant.
Yes. And so if that's accurate, there's another tie-in and another reason that you should ignore the fact if you are an adult and say, well, I can't watch a Nickelodeon show. Trust me. Watch it.
It's a wonderful story. It's acted for kids. It's written for adults.
Yeah.
And on that note too, something's up with that storyline, perhaps. The Cisco. Where is the Cisco? The fact that is it IDW? The fact that there are new licensed comic books coming out, which are not canon. They're never canon in Trek. But the fact that things are coming out. Come on, people. Don't you think we're a year or two away from something being revealed? Some kind of tie-in. I'm not saying it will be Avery Brooks. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know that Avery's retired. I've always told you about him. I know we got to wrap up because I won't go off, but I love Avery Brooks. I loved him as Captain Cisco. I loved him as Hawk in Spencer for Hire and his own show.
And still maybe the best monologue of all of Trek in The Pale Moonlight.
Oh yes. Yes. So I gotta take a breather and have some coffee because I am just I could talk about this a lot. Both of us could.
Yeah. So stay tuned for an upcoming episode focusing on coffee. We're dead serious. We'll get Brad through the delirium tremens, and then we're good to go. All right. As always, be well, stay well. We'll see you in a couple weeks.